Welcome to our Cybersafe Digest weekly podcast, episode 21. Each week, we will unfold the most recent cyber attacks and will provide you with valuable insights on how to shield your business from these threats, along with practical steps and tips to enhance your cybersecurity.
Welcome to episode 21 of our Cybersafe Digest. I'm Martin Roberts, Managing Director of Newways. I am here with
Toby Stevenson, Chief Technology Officer of Newways.
Well, hello, Toby. Good morning to you, or good day to you. I'm delighted to say, Toby, that due to your good offices, that we've just achieved Cyber Essentials Plus certification again for the 5th year running. You'd expect an organisation like ours to have that. We think it's the level we should be at, but we do go beyond that anyway with our own frameworks. So well done, Toby. Thank you very much, you and your team. Mm-hmm. I think this episode will concentrate on something that is actually might be useful to our listener, our target listener, which is if you're a CEO, CFO of a business, an SME, you're responsible for security, you're responsible for IT, but not necessarily managing it directly. And it's about what really is Cyber Essentials. We bandy around Cyber Essentials Plus, like everyone knows it like we do.
Yeah.
And I thought there'd be some benefit in this episode about talking really what are the nuts and bolts of it? What's it for? Why should you do it? And actually, what do you have to do practically as a business?
Yeah. So lift the veil a little bit on what it means to try and get Cyber Essentials. Absolutely.
So let's start off with Cyber Essentials. Why should you have it?
Well, I suppose there's a variety of reasons. Some will argue that there is commercial benefit to it. So we've seen situations where a company will come to us and say, we've trying to win this piece of business, or we've won this contract and we need to be Cyber Essentials or Cyber Essentials Plus certified. So there's often a commercial driver to it. Occasionally we see it being driven by cyber insurance. So again, a way of stating that you've attained a recognized standard of information security. The other reason would be that it's just a good thing to do. It's a recognized foundational level of cybersecurity that's appropriate for every small to medium-sized business in the country.
Now, I would also liken this to the health and safety agenda. You know, a good number of years ago when I started in business, and it was a good number of years ago, health and safety was there, but it wasn't top of the agenda. Having worked across business and in both SMEs and corporations, often health and safety has reached the top of the agenda. It's the first thing on the board meeting agenda, and cybersecurity is now getting up to that pace as well. So as a business, if you don't do cybersecurity, even a nod to it and try to attain a certain good level of cybersecurity, then actually you potentially are putting your business at risk. As in having not a good recognition of what health and safety does for you. Okay, so good reasons for having it. So let's talk about Cyber Essentials first, and then Cyber Essentials Plus.
Yeah.
So what is Cyber Essentials? What do you have to do to get Cyber Essentials?
Fine. Okay. So the first thing to recognise about Cyber Essentials is that it is independently designed by the UK government, the NCSC, the National Centre for Cybersecurity, and it is designed for small to medium-sized businesses and to give a good, strong baseline. So it covers off 5 main areas, and if you can address these areas, you're giving yourself a good level of protection from the most common cyber threats that exist. So officially, the 5 technical domains that are covered by Cyber Essentials are firewalls and routers, basically saying, have you got the proper firewall that doesn't allow everything in and everything out? So have you got perimeter control of your network? A secure configuration, which is basically to say, we're not just running everything out of the box, we are changing default passwords, we are removing software that we don't need.
Sure.
User access control. So this is something we spoke in more detail about, this principle of least privilege. People can only do what they need to do. They don't have administrative rights on their daily account, that kind of thing. Sounds obvious, but malware protection? Are you
Yes.
running something on your computers that will protect you from a piece of malicious code if it was to execute?
Sure.
And then patch management. Are you patching your system for vulnerabilities? Are you doing those Windows updates? Are you updating your web browsers and your Javas and your Adobes, all of those things? And the notion is that if you can do all of these things to the Cyber Essentials required level, then you are bolstering your cybersecurity posture to the level that is deemed to be the minimum for a small or medium-sized business in the UK.
Okay. So the practical application of this, I mean, how do you prove it? What do you have to do?
So Cyber Essentials, and it's one of the reasons why it's been derided in the past, is that it's self-assessment. So it's how honest are you? So you answer the questionnaire. So you get a questionnaire and there's maybe 50 or 60 questions on it, that through those questions and the answers that you give and maybe submit some evidence, you will basically prove or otherwise that you meet the 5 technical domains for Cyber Essentials. So that you have got a firewall, you've got a secure configuration, etc.
Okay, so let's just take a pause there, because you can answer those questions, but you might not necessarily be telling the truth. Now, not by design.
Yeah.
You might be responsible for filling out this questionnaire, though you're probably delegated if you're a CEO or CFO. You're relying on the person filling out that form to be telling you the absolute truth.
Yeah.
And more importantly, to understand that they're telling the absolute truth.
Yeah. Yeah, and a lot of it, because it's the first rung on the ladder, it is an honour-based system. You are expected to answer truthfully and to the best of your knowledge, like you do when you fill in any other insurance form, whether it be home insurance or medical insurance or travel insurance, all of these things. You expect to answer them in as truthful a manner as you can. The problem with some of the questions here is that these are relatively IT-specific questions, and they may not be within the normal realm of operation for whoever's filling the form. And if you've got a dedicated IT person and they are being truthful, then you'll get a good degree of accuracy out of it. But if this is going to someone that's not really IT savvy, it can be very difficult to be sure that the answers are correct.
Okay, so obviously, if you've got your own IT resource, internal IT resource or dedicated IT resource, probably less of a problem. Otherwise, you're going to have to go to your MSP or the people that you work with, and they will fill that out for you. And the chances are that will be not more honest. I'm trying to be nice to the people who would normally fill it in internally, but they're going to not take any risks. Because
exactly. They're going to be more critical, have a more critical eye over it than perhaps an internal resource or someone that doesn't fully understand what they're answering.
And the other thing to take away from this act is to say, well, hang on a sec. I'm economical with the actuality, as somebody once said in the past, economical with the truth, or not telling the story quite like it is. You might actually achieve Cyber Essentials certification because it's self-certified.
Yeah.
But it may not stand scrutiny either by a third party or, oh gosh, in the event of some problem, which you then try to claim on and we haven't talked about this, the insurance that is included in your Cyber Essentials certification. So somebody would say, you answered this question here like this, and it turns out it wasn't true.
Yeah, and there's a very real danger of that. So one of the things that might happen is if you suffer some kind of data breach or something like that, and you have to report to the ICO, they'll come and say, okay, let's look what you did to take reasonable care. Oh, you've got Cyber Essentials. Oh, but actually you said you did this, but you're not doing that. And that can then be problematic. So you can fall foul of the ICO as well if you're not careful.
So let's just quick explain for anybody who's listening. ICO, the Information Commissioner's Office, you need, in the event of a breach, under certain circumstances, you need to report that breach to them so they can take appropriate action.
Yeah, absolutely. If any personal data is involved in a breach, the ISO have to be informed.
Right. Okay. And we'll talk about that in another episode in terms of how to report the breach, what to do, and what the consequences of that are. Okay, so is Cyber Essentials still purely self-certification these days, or is that changing?
So Cyber Essentials is, and for the foreseeable future, will be self-certified, self-attested. The answers are reviewed by an assessor to make sure that they pass muster, and again, depends on the quality of the assessor as to how robustly they challenge some of the answers. But there is always that opportunity for people to get certified that perhaps don't, in reality, meet all of the technical controls.
Either wittingly or unwittingly.
Yes.
Okay. Just about the assessors, are they part of the NCSC, or are they accredited assessors, or are they...
Yeah, they are accredited. There is a certification body, a single one in the UK, and then there are a number of certification assessors and companies, and they have to validate their credentials with the certification body in order for them to perform the Cyber Essentials checks and issue the certification.
Now, obviously, if you're using a third party for your IT support to look after you, and you send the question out to them, I would say this, let me pre-qualify this statement, I would say this, you are likely to have to pay them for filling out that questionnaire if you want a good quality response.
Yes.
And
because it will take some time, and invariably what we see when we run Cyber Essentials through with our customers is there's often remediation work that's required. Not much, but just a little titivation here and there, which then may also be an extra few hours or whatever's work, which again you need to come to some arrangement as how that gets covered off. But there's definitely involved in putting in the questionnaire and then any remediation work that's identified.
Okay, let me try saying this, and then we can either cut it out or we can try. So Toby, on a scale of 1 to 5, if 1 is somebody who looks after IT in a sort of does a few things here and there and is able to reboot a machine in the event, but relies on other people to get the technical stuff done, and 5, an IT manager who is multi-skilled and such like, if you're doing self-certification on this basis, what level do you want to be? It's not a 1, obviously. It could.
No, I would say probably 3. You need to understand what's happening and why it's happening and why it's being asked. You need to be competent enough that you're answering with honesty and you're not sheltering the truth. So I think doesn't need someone that is an MIT level genius to answer it, but also it's probably not a first line IT person's activity either. So needs somebody with a reasonable degree of understanding of the overall system, not just a particular subset of it. Okay.
Well, that's been very useful. Thank you very much. So now let's talk about Cyber Essentials Plus.
Fine. So Cyber Essentials Plus is, I like to refer to it as the way that you put your money where your mouth is. So you have to have done Cyber Essentials first, and then the assessor then, through a number of different activities, tests the robustness of your answers. So normally the way this manifests is across a number of different technical validations. And obviously we went through ours very recently, so it's all very, very fresh as to exactly how this goes down. So the first thing that they will do, and this touches on the firewalls and routers technical domain, is they will do an external penetration test to validate that you're not exposing anything to the internet that you shouldn't be. And so they do this against all of the internet connections that are within scope, so the ones that you've declared in your Cyber Essentials, and that goes off and normally, again, if you've answered correctly, there should be no issues, but every so often, something may pop up that you didn't know or is suddenly appeared, or is a misconfiguration or something like that, and you're given the opportunity to then to correct that and then have the test run again.
Okay, good.
So then the second thing that they do is they want to validate that you are actually patching your systems and that you don't have any out-of-date software on your machines. Now, they will normally choose a sample of machines. So rather than, if you've got an organization with 50 machines in, they won't check every single machine, mostly. They will check a subset and a sample of them. And with that, they will...
Quick question there. Do you get to choose the sample?
Some of that is down to the assessor's discretion.
Good.
I've seen it different ways, and this is always one of the problems with any kind of assessment. There is a set of guidelines, and then there are the people that should have been a traffic warden in another life, and then there are people that are a bit more laid back.
Okay. And by the way, we like traffic wardens.
I absolutely love traffic wardens.
Flowing perfect.
Exactly. And stop all those illegal parkers just absolutely touching the white line in the car park.
Too right.
So there is a little bit of variability here. Some of it depends on the size of the environment, but essentially it will either be they'll have taken the list of devices that you've submitted as part of the Cyber Essentials and say, I want to look at these 5, these 10, whatever the number is, or they will say to you, can you identify 5 or 10 machines? And they'll tell you what that is that we can go and look at. And they offer that degree of flexibility kind of post-pandemic because they recognise that not everybody is always available because of hybrid working and things like that.
Okay. So here's a question. Does it depend on the size of the estate? So if you've got 10 computers, is it 5? And if you've got 1,000 computers, is it 5? Or is it?
It is a percentage, and it's normally somewhere between 10 and 20% of the estate size. They normally want to get a good feel for it because what they're looking for is it's an entry level thing. They don't want to be punitive. They don't want to penalise you because you've missed one patch on one PC out of 100. They want to get a feel for what the culture of the adoption of the Cyber Essentials spirit is, really. So normally, if there's 1 or 2 minor infractions, you get the opportunity to correct those and demonstrate that they've been corrected, and then they will normally mark that off as completed because they've spotted an anomaly, but you've provided evidence that you've addressed the anomaly and so forth. If every single machine that they looked at showed lots of vulnerabilities, they would not be so lenient.
And the feeling I'm getting here as we go through this process is it is I won't say collaborative experience, but it's an experience which is encouraged to help you to do the right thing rather than a punitive experience which says at the first hurdle you fall over. Thank you.
Exactly, because if your very first experience of doing a cybersecurity certification is you get kicked pillar to post after having spent lots and lots of money getting to that point,
yeah,
you're going to think long and hard about doing it again next time because it was such a horrible experience and it didn't offer any value. So I think there is that nurturing aspect to the attitude that's taken, and certainly a lot more strict than more mature frameworks.
Good. Okay. All right. So we've talked about a couple of things there. So.
So that was vulnerability management. Yeah, they go off and they will check it, and they will do that through a piece of approved software. So the rules that that Cyber Essentials has is that to perform this validation, it has to be software that is certified for PCI checks. So the payment card industry checks. It has to be so you can't just use your own bit of checking software or a cheap and cheerful one that you've found on some random website somewhere. It has to be one of a list of a certain few. So they use that to create this consistency. There's a handful of different pieces of software you can use, and they are all known to be good. They're all PCI DSS certified, so they are approved to do these checks to an agreed level, and that's what they like to use.
Okay.
They will then go through a series of checks to validate that your email and web browsing controls per the secure configuration, user access control, and malware protection technical domains are checked. So with the company that we work with to perform these activities, they go to the machines of the people that have been selected, to validate their free of vulnerabilities, and they will then run some commands on there to prove that they are not an administrative user on that PC. So they'll run some commands on there with the expectation that it will pop up and say, you can't do this because you're not an administrator. So that validates that user access control piece, that principle of least privilege. They will then run a series of email and web browsing checks. So they will take your email address and fire you a load of emails in that contain things that shouldn't get through.
Right.
And you will either not see them, or they will be stripped out, or there'll be a message in there saying the message has been put into quarantine or something like that.
Sure.
The idea is that these malicious type files can't get through to an end user who could then click on them and run them.
Yeah.
They then do the same for testing your web defenses. So they've got a special website with all sorts of files are there that shouldn't be allowed to be downloaded and executed, and you will run through downloading all of these and seeing what the system does.
Okay.
The final part of it will be to then check any mobile devices that you've declared in your Cyber Essentials to make sure that they are not jailbroken, that they're running a supported and latest version of the mobile operating system.
So at the end of all that, if you pass everything and
yes,
you're given the opportunity to put certain minor things right or have another go, you achieve Cyber Essentials Plus. Says you're given a certificate.
Correct. You get a different certificate that has the word plus on it. You get a different badge to put on your website, on your email footers or whatever, that says plus on it. Most importantly, you are listed on the NCSC site as being a Cyber Essentials Plus certified person. So if there's ever any doubt, you can go to the NCSC site or the Cyber Essentials site, and you can type in a company name and see what their certification status is.
Okay, so I mean, thinking about it this way, we've talked about the differences now between Cyber Essentials and Cyber Essentials Plus. One is self-certification. One is independently assessed, which is excellent. Working with somebody who's got Cyber Essentials Plus, which you can go and validate against the NCSC website, is a really good part of your vendor assessment.
Definitely.
Customer assessment process, along with credit checking and all those things. So it might be something worthwhile adding to your list. Okay, and that certification lasts for 12 months. Yep.
You have to undertake the Cyber Essentials Plus assessment within 3 months of gaining your Cyber Essentials.
Okay.
So that's another limitation, shall we say, of the process. So normally what people will do is they will complete their Cyber Essentials, and then within the next 3 months, they will do their Cyber Essentials Plus.
Okay, let's try and give people a bit of a rule of thumb here. And this is really unfair of me. This is why I'm going to ask it. Let's say you're an SME. You employ 50 odd people. You maybe have 30 odd computers out there or devices and things like that. How long is it going to take you to get Cyber Essentials from the moment you say, hey, this would be a good idea? Assuming that you've got, and this is really how long's a piece of string, I know, because let's say you've been fairly careful about things. I mean, is it a matter of days, or is it weeks, or is it months?
It is a how long's a piece of string, so it depends the start point. But it's probably going to be days, weeks, unless you are very lax with security controls. Then it might take a little bit longer. The big problem that we often find that puts a delay in is where there is out-of-date software or out-of-date mobile phones, because you can't legitimately certify if you've got Android 8 phones because they're just not supported anymore. They need to be replaced, and that obviously carries a cost.
Okay.
And so there may be, just managing the finances, it introduces a delay. Same if you've got out-of-date software, it might cost you 100, 1,000 or more to replace that software or get it updated in order for you to get Cyber Essentials.
But I suppose the one thing this demonstrates above all else is that, and it's an old cliche, that this is a process, not an event.
Yes, it is. It's not a one and done. This is a long-term undertaking. This is a cultural shift, and invariably the first time takes longer because you're having to pay off any technical debt you've accrued, where you've not updated servers or phones, or you've done the easy thing because people were moaning and given more permissions than you should have done. You end up having to pay that off in full before you can progress. Normally the renewals are much easier because you've already done all the heavy lifting.
For sure. Okay, I think that's been a really useful session. Thank you very much, Toby. We could go on and on, I know. The one thing I'd say is if you as a business, you should consider Cyber Essentials. I would always choose Cyber Essentials Plus because it is independently verified. That badge, that independent checking of that is really important. It shows you're serious about cybersecurity. We've got a resource page on cybersafe.co.uk. I'll repeat that, cybersafe.co.uk. Go there, you'll find out more. There's links to other things you can find out too. So thank you very much for that, Toby. And by the way, congratulations on achieving that for the 5th year running.
Thank you.
Obviously, we do have the pleasure, of course, of doing this day to day, because it's not just ourselves you take through this, it's many of our customers as well.
That's right, it is, yes.
Yeah, hopefully ours is the easiest.
Well, yeah, I mean, the thing is, it's the old adage, that preparation is key. You make sure that you are in a good place before you get the assessor in, because otherwise you're just scrambling around and trying to fix things on the fly. So preparation is key. It's taken us multiple hours to get to a position where we're ready, and it's the same with our customers. But that preparation and that time investment ahead of the assessment pays dividends, because it makes the process so much smoother, and we can go normally with a reasonable degree of confidence that we've met all of the technical domains that are needed to be displayed.
Okay. Thank you very much, Toby. Really interesting stuff, and I hope will be very useful to the people who listen to this podcast. As I say, the CFOs, CEOs, people who are responsible for IT, but not necessarily operating IT. We'll finish off this week with our acronym of the week.
Okay.
I don't know if you're prepared for this, so I'm going to throw it at you. We talked last time about EDR.
Yes, endpoint detection and response, yes.
Yep, in episode 20. In episode 21, we're talking about MDR.
Right, managed detection and response.
Okay, go on then. Are they different, and how are they different?
So it's kind of a superset of EDR. So endpoint detection and response, EDR, we spoke last time. It's a really great tool. It levels up the endpoint security to the next stage, really, compared to antivirus. The problem with EDR tools is they have got a lot of information, a lot of stuff going on, and they can create quite a bit of noise and need quite a bit of tuning. And that can be quite difficult for a non-IT person, or maybe a single IT person, to do properly and effectively on top of the rest of the things that they're doing.
Okay, let me just interrupt you there, because I think that what you get with a lot of these things is we call them false positives.
Yeah.
Yes. We think that there's something going on, and it actually, on investigation, it turns out that it isn't going on. It's quite normal behavior. Yeah.
Yeah. Yes.
And there's a huge amount of that generated by this. And when you talk about tuning, it's recognizing those false positives and making sure that they're not reported again.
Exactly that. Yeah. So to recap on kind of the last couple of podcasts where we spoke about antivirus and the EDR and the differences. So the antivirus, from a management perspective, is often quite low, because it's only stopping things that are known and proven to be bad.
Sure.
So you don't really have, other than following the alert says, this PC has had this virus detected on it, and then perhaps going and doing some work around that. Yeah. It's quite a binary thing. You either do something or you don't. With EDR, because it's looking at behavioral things, there are things that look dodgy that need to be checked into that may not end up being dodgy. And if they are recurring things, then yes, we tune them out. We create exceptions, policy overrides, things like that to stop them coming back, because we don't need to see that this legitimate behavior, which looks like it might be shady, is running. So, but EDR has that need around it, because it is being so much more forensically accurate and looking in so much more detail that we can't overlook the alerts, because we're then just doing ourselves a disservice. I mean, I think we touched on it on the previous podcast, and I'll repeat the anecdote. An organisation that was running an EDR tool got ransomware. And when they went to the EDR vendor and said, how on earth did this happen? We've got the latest and greatest and everything's configured. They did the analysis and says, yes, you were getting alerts for 30 days for people trying to run and do bad things before they finally found a way to do it. Yeah. And because somebody hadn't been following up those alerts, they'd been seeing they'd been popped up and they'd been dealt with, but they didn't trigger the mindset to say, go and investigate what's going on. And so what a managed detection and response service will do, as opposed to it being a product, is it adds a management layer over and above the EDR. So it's taking that burden away from the IT team, the IT person, and moving it to a series of specialists that do this day in, day out. They know what they're looking for, and they can very quickly ascertain whether something is good, bad, or needs further investigation. And
because of their experience and knowledge, it'll be a quicker response. And of course, you're paying for that response.
Yes. So invariably, the other advantage that MDR gives is it's normally a 24/7 service, because we all know that the bad guys don't just work 9 to 5. In fact, they want to work when people are not working because your defences and guard are down. And having someone that's looking at those EDR alerts on a Friday night or a Sunday morning when people are typically doing other things can be really beneficial, because they are empowered to take the actions to protect the environment rather than it waiting till Monday morning and the attackers spent 3 days doing what they like to do on the network.
Yes, so we've just had an Easter weekend here in the UK. So all those people had 4 days of no people not being in the office to have free reign to run around your networks and your
exactly because if you don't have a solution like this, then those alerts don't get looked at until the next working day. And there's been incident after incident in that makes the press where attackers have leveraged holiday weekends. The 4th of July in the US is a big one over there for attacks to happen. And Thanksgiving weekend, because they know that most organisations are either not at work or have a skeleton staff on, and don't necessarily have the resources to chase up all of these alerts.
Okay. Right. Well, thank you very much indeed, Toby. Great podcast. I think anyway. We've done Cyber Essentials, Cyber Essentials Plus, and MDR. And I'm not going to tell you about the acronym for next week yet, because I like you to respond without preparation. It just demonstrates your deep knowledge and understanding of everything. Just fantastic. So from me, Martin Roberts, Managing Director of Newways, thank you very much. From you.
Yeah, Toby Stevenson, Chief Technology Officer at Newways.
We will see you next time. Take care.
Thank you, everyone. We've reached the end of episode 21 of our Cybersafe Digest weekly podcast. Thank you very much for listening, and to make sure you don't miss out on our future episodes, hit that subscribe button on Spotify, Apple, or Google Podcast. For more cybersecurity wisdom and resources, head over to our website at cybersafe.co.uk. See you next Thursday.